In 1976, a man by the name of Dr. Rashad Khalifa started publicizing some of his findings, showing that there is a miraculous pattern of things in the Quran occurring on the basis of the number 19. So there'd be 19 of this and 19 of that, and multiples of 19. But his claims were found later on to be exaggerated, and then he exaggerated claims about his own status as well. But after all of the dust of that debate came to be settled, other students of the Quran, while on the one hand condemning Dr. Khalifa for his exaggerations, at the same time point out that there are in fact some features of the Quran that are miraculous, that there are numbers of chapters and verses and number of words used and sometimes even the number of letters used, which show that there is a plan here. It's not just simply haphazard. You know, when we want to speak out a message, we're thinking about the meaning of what we're going to say, right? But if we count the words in hindsight, like how many words did we use to express that message, we see that the number of words have a certain meaning to it. The number itself has a certain meaning, or the number is significant in a certain way, then we might say, okay, that's just a coincidence. But how many coincidences can you have before you start realizing that there is a plan behind this series of coincidences? In the 74th chapter of the Quran, in the 30th verse, it says, over it are 19. And the it here refers to the fire and hell. But the following verse goes into great lengths about why this number is mentioned. And it says that the mention of this number will give certainty to the people of the book. And at the same time, it will strengthen the faith of those who believe. While the non-believers and those who have disease in their hearts will deride this information. So it goes into great lengths about this number 19. And it turns out that if you look at this verse in the page in which it is written, you see that all the surrounding verses are very short. They may have 2 words each, 3 words each, 4 words each. But this verse, the 31st verse of Surah 74, is very long compared to the surrounding verses. And if you were to be curious enough to count the number of words in that verse, you will see that there are 57 words, which are 19 times 3. So not only is it explaining the use of the number 19, but it itself is structured in such a way that the 19 is an underlying pattern in the structure. But now we're seeing that there was something more than just simply the number of 19 angels guarding hell. We're seeing that when we count words, we count verses, we count the number of letters, that things are turning out to be multiples of 19, more than would just simply be the result of chance. And this is surprising. For example, in the same chapter, if we ask, okay, how many words make up the first 19 verses of that chapter? And we see that there too is 19 times 3 words, 57. And if we ask how many words altogether from the beginning of the chapter all the way down to where this 19 is being explained in detail, so the first 30 verses, there are 19 times 5 words, 19 times 5 words. So we got 95 words right there. And if we ask how many letters up to, but not including the mention of the word 19, there are 19 times 19 letters, which is 361. So we have here a coalescence of many occurrences of 19, and this is unusual. Because if you flip a coin, because there are 2 sides to the coin, the chance of getting your desired result is 1 out of 2, or 50%, right? It's 50-50. What if you were to roll 1 die, if you are playing a game of Monopoly or something like this? You roll 1 die and you want a desired result. What are your chances? 1 out of 6, because there's 6 faces, right? And each one has an equal chance of turning up. Now, if you increase the number, the chance is even less when you're dealing with a bigger number. For example, if you are one of 19 persons lining up to catch your flight at the airport, what are the chances that you will be selected for a random search? Mathematically, it's 1 out of 19, it would seem. If you're a Muslim, probably it's a little bit higher. If you get picked out one time, then you'll say, okay, I just happen to be the one of the 19 this time, right? But then the second time, you're the one who were picked again. And then the third time you're picked again. So now you get the idea that something here is not random. They know in advance who they're going to pick out. If they don't pick you the fourth time, there could be some other issue at play and some other reason why they didn't pick you, and you don't know what the reason is. But you know that the times when they picked you 3 times in a row, there seems to be something going on. Well, in the Quran, why do we have the 19s occurring again and again? There seems to be something going on. There seems to be like a plan behind this. And when we look back in history, we see that there's no human being who deliberately did this. Nobody knew that this existed until in 1976, a man by the name of Dr. Rashad Khalifa published his findings in which he exaggerated the results. He found 19s even when they did not exist. And eventually he claimed that he is an apostle of God, designated by God to bring this information to the modern age. And naturally, his claim was not accepted by Sunnis. But when people look carefully at the studies, they found that even though his claims were exaggerated, there are certain occurrences of the number 19 in the Quran, things aligned mathematically like this on this pattern. And while it's not everywhere, it is in some very key places enough to make us realize that there is a plan here, and it was not a human plan. So now let's look at another example of that phenomenon and tie it in with the 19 and show how there is an interlocking of the two systems. So here we have the mention in the Quran in Surah 3, verse number 59, that Jesus and Adam are similar in the sight of God. And the message there is that God created them both. So one is like the other. Now, from a mathematical point of view, the two are alike in that each name, Jesus and Adam, occurs in the Quran 25 times. Now, if they always occur together, if the Quran always had Jesus and Adam, of course it will come out even, right? But if some chapters mention Jesus and some other chapters mention Adam, well, now we wonder, how did this number come out exactly like this? Now, it turns out that they're both mentioned in Surah 2 and then in Surah 3, where it said that they are alike. After they are mentioned in Surah 3, they don't occur again in the same chapter except once, and I'll come to that. When they're mentioned in Surah 3, this is the 7th time each name is mentioned. So there's a kind of alignment here. And then they split up. And then they occur again, they converge in the 19th chapter. That's the only chapter where they occur again. Not in the same verse, but 25 verses apart inclusive. And that is the 19th time each name occurs. So each name occurring for the 19th time occur in the 19th chapter. Now, if we count the number of verses from the 7th mention of Adam to the 19th mention of Adam, there are 1,957 verses, which means 19 times 103. And if we add up the verses in which Jesus is mentioned for the first 19 times, we get the same number, 1,957, which is 19 times 103. So here we see an interlocking of the two systems. One is that the two contrasting words are used an equal number of times, and we give many other examples of that in our previous show. Now we're talking about the occurrence of things as multiples of 19, and we see that the 19 plays out in a big number. 19 times 103 is not a small number, but the same number occurs in two different counts. And for that kind of coincidence to occur, it's very rare. And it seems here that we're looking here at a sign that this Quran is miraculous. It is the Word of God. Sometimes numbers will agree with each other by coincidence, and we have to discount what is normal and what would normally occur by coincidence. But we find that there's so many instances and so many of these coincidences in the Quran that you cannot just simply discount them as coincidences, because you flip the coin and you get heads. You know, the chance of getting heads repeatedly is remote. And if you keep getting heads repeatedly, you have to ask if the tail side is weighted down somehow on that particular coin. Something is not right about this coin. So why does the 19 occur again and again? We were talking about the 74th chapter. If we go to the 96th chapter of the Quran, this is the chapter that contains what in our traditions say it was the first revelation given to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Not the whole chapter at once, but the first 5 verses that begins with Iqra, read. When the Prophet was meditating in the cave, this is what we understand that the angel Gabriel told him, read. The first 5 verses of that chapter. Now, if we count the words in those first 5 verses, in that first revelation, there are 19 words. If we count the letters, we see there are 19 times 4 letters, or 76. If we now are curious and we count the letters in the entire chapter, there are 19 times 15 letters, or 285 letters. And the chapter itself comprises 19 verses, and the chapter is placed 19 from the end of the Quran. Well, I would say that when we look at patterns in nature, especially mathematical patterns, we infer from that God exists. Colin Ronan, the astronomer who wrote the book The Universe from the Big Bang to the End of Time, actually draws attention to what he calls large number coincidences in the universe. And he uses that as evidence that God exists. Because how did these patterns, mathematical patterns, find themselves in the universe? It points to a designer. So a similar sort of reasoning needs to be applied to the Quran. Here is a book that was transmitted in history over time, and as far as we look back, we see that human beings who worked on this are just simply trying to reproduce and copy and remember and recite the book as it was delivered to them. And now we're seeing that though nobody meddled with it to put these numbers in there, we're seeing that things are lined up. The number of chapters, number of verses, number of words, number of letters are used deliberately, it would seem, and calculatedly to bring out this kind of pattern, and that points to not a human author, but to a divine designer who gave us the Quran.
Please subscribe to our channel. Kindly like, share and comment on our videos. If anyone benefits because of your like and share, then God may provide you with unlimited reward, which is called Sadaqatul Jariyah in Islam. Sadaqatul Jariyah is continuous rewards received for good actions, deeds, and spreading knowledge. It is a gift that not only benefits us in this life, but also benefits us and our loved ones in the hereafter. According to the hadith of the Prophet, peace be upon him, narrated by Muslim, when a person dies, all the deeds end except 3: a continuing charity, beneficial knowledge, and a child who prays for them.